Okay, hello everyone. This is day 3. Just FYI, I have this book called Tiny Python Notebook. It's small and it covers Python 3.9 syntax. You can get one on Amazon if you want a physical copy, but if you go to my GitHub, it's Matt Harrison, you'll find it there, the source for that. So let's do day 3 here. I haven't opened it, so let's open it and see what happens. See if I can read today. With the toboggan login problems resolved, you set off toward the airport. While travel by toboggan might be easy, it's certainly not safe. There's very minimal steering and the area is covered in trees. You need to see which angles will take you near the fewest trees. Due to the local geology, trees in this area only grow on exact integer coordinates in a grid. You make a map, your puzzle input of the open squares, and trees. There aren't only trees due to some stability involving arboreal genetics and biome stability. The same pattern repeats to the right many times. You start on the open square in the top left corner, and you need to reach the bottom, below the bottommost row. The toboggan can only follow a few specific slopes. You opted for a cheaper model that prefers rational numbers. Start by counting all the trees you would encounter for slope right 3, down 1. From your starting position at the top left, check that the position that is right 3 and down 1. Then check the position that is right 3 and down 1 from there, and so on until you go past the bottom of the map. The locations you'd check on the examples were marked with an O. In this example, traversing the map, you would encounter 7 trees. Starting at the top left corner and following a slope of 3, 1, how many trees would you encounter? Okay, so we need to build a map from the input and then do some math traversing down it. So how would I do this? I know that some of who are probably watching this are like, you haven't used classes, and I'm maybe tempted to use classes, but I'm like, I mean, the map is just a list, and we could just loop over the list and do an index position on that. And so I think I'm going to solve this without using classes. I'll probably solve one with using classes eventually. So let me open up my editor and let's get going here. So let's make a new directory here. Day 3.py. Okay, and what I'm going to have, well, let's copy this. And I'm trying to make a very simple test case that, and think about what I want my interface to be for this. So I've got a map and I've got a slope. So def, and I don't know what to name this right now. This is like tree counts from a map. And I've got, how do they specify it here? Right and a down. So I'll just say right and down. Now note that map here is a built-in, so I could call this like a tree map. We'll put a doc test here. And then I'll put my tree, I'll put tree map is equal to, and then I'm going to put triple quoted strings in here. Now note that because I'm inside of a doc test, I need to fix this indentation. So I believe it needs to go right there. So we'll leave that there. And then we'll say tree counts and let's maybe do something a little bit simpler here. So tree map, I've got just a string. Do I want it to be a list or I want it to be a string? That's a good question. I can see either way. Eventually it will have to be a list, but I can read it in from a file as a string very easily. I'll just leave it as a string for now. So let's pass in our tree map here, and let's go right. Let's go right one and down. And I'm just gonna prune this a little bit just to get rid of. Okay, so right one and down three. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to go right one and down three. I should hit one. So I'm going to say right is equal to 1, down is equal to 3, and the result of that should be 1. Okay, let's test this. So I'm going to get my tree map in, and I'm going to assume that it's a string. I mean, if I wanted to, I could come up here and use like type hints just to like let people know that that's a string. If you're not familiar with type hints in Python 3, Python 3 doesn't actually, well, it does something with the type hints, but it doesn't check them for you. It just annotates your code with them. You can use a third-party tool such as MyPy to check that your code is doing the right thing. And we could do something similar here. We could say that this is an int and this is an int. Okay, so I'm going to convert my tree into a list here. So I'm just going to say tree list is equal to tree map, and we'll say split on new lines. That will give us a list. And so I'm just going to say, I'm going to say that my X position is equal to 0 and my Y position is equal to 0. And I think we can do like a while loop here. We can say like while Y position, so Y is up and down, while Y position is less than, so let's see, the length of this tree here, I think it should be 3. And so while the Y position, so we'll 0, 1, 2, length of tree list -1. While it's less than that, then we're going to do something in our while loop here, and we're going to have to count our trees. So I'm going to say count is 0, and so, and we got our Y position and our X position. Okay, cool. So here's our row. Our row is going to be tree list Y position, and then I'm going to say count plus equals, did we hit a tree in that row? So our X position, so that's going to be if row at X pos is equal to that. Okay, so this is just taking into account one of the nice features of Python, I think, is that trues and falses evaluate to ones and zeros, so we can just sum up the trues and falses here. At this point, we need to increment our xpos plus equals after this by our right, and we need to increment our ypos plus equals this by our down, and we can just return count at this point. Okay. I think this is it, or I think this is the basic logic. It might have some off by one bugs in it. So let's push it up the hill and see what happens here. So I'll just put up my little scaffolding. If dunder name equals the string, dunder main, import doc test. One of these days I'll use PyTest for this instead. And this might be a case where using PyTest might be a little bit better, because I'm just envisioning some corner cases here, but let's try this. And I got to CD into day 3. Okay, we got tree map is not defined here. So I have an error here, and yeah, I think what happened here is I need this. Because this is a doc string, or this is a doc string, and we're putting this in what looks like a REPL. Let me just show you here. We need to sort of simulate a REPL here. So I'm going to say like paragraph is equal to hello. And you'll notice that it put in the secondary prompt there, the ... So I need to sort of simulate that in my doc test. Let's just look at this. It doesn't have a new line at the end, so I'm just going to say para.split on new line. Let's look at the length of that, if that's 3. Yeah, that is 3. So one thing we'll need to be aware of is if there is a new line at the end of this or not, because that might throw off our count there. Okay. So I saved that, I added that. Let's push it back up the hill. Okay, so we got expected 1, but I got 0. Okay, so I'm gonna use my print debugging here. I mean, I could use my rubber duck debugging. I could use the Python debugger if I want to. One of the places where doc test I think doesn't shine is with the Python debugger, and that's one of the places where PyTest is a little bit better. Maybe I should do a PyTest test and just show the debugger here. So let's do that. I'm not sure if I have PyTest installed. Let me see. Yeah, I don't have it installed. So I'm going to make a virtual environment really quickly. And I think I already have one. So let's do this. I think it's in my temp. Okay, so I've got PyTest in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to touch test day3.py, and we'll open that up. And I'm just going to basically copy that, plop this in here. So I've got a day 3. I need to say import day 3, and I'll make it a little test here. Def test tree counts. And in PyTest, you don't need to add any parameters to your test here. So this is following the XUnit paradigm. We're going to do 3 things in the XUnit paradigm. We're going to do our setup. In this case, our setup is going to be making our tree map. And this, we can clean this up a little bit. Whoops. I get rid of that and that in this case. This looks a little bit off. One of the things about triple quoted strings and nested functions, they do look a little bit off, but we'll just accept that. Okay, so that's our setup. After you do setup, you're going to call your unit. In this case, our unit is going to be tree counts. And so I'm going to say res is equal to, and I don't have tree counts in my namespace. I have day 3 in my namespace. And then, so that's step 2, call the unit. And then step 3 is make an assertion. And you're going to say assert that res is equal to, and it should be 1. And that should be it. Okay, so this is our test. And let's run this with PyTest. Okay, and we got a failure here. Let me just make this a little bit bigger so you can see, because we'll be leveraging the REPL here. Just go over to my face. Okay, so if you're not familiar with PyTest, it gives you some boilerplate code up at the top, then it says what test it's running, and in this case it has an F as a failure here. And this is the failure. We got res is 0 and not 1. So watch what I can do here. I can actually say PyTest PDB, not PDF, PDB. Okay, and then I can, it drops me into the PDB debugger, which is kind of nice here. I can say L, where am I? Let me just move this up a teeny bit because it looks like I might be blocking some of that. Okay, so here I am. And I've got tree map. So this is a little bit not as useful as maybe what I'd like. This is failing, but I really want to jump into count debugs before it fails. So I'm going to actually just quit this. And I'm going to like hack around this to, let's see if I can do this. Assert 0 here. Okay, so that's and that's not doing what I want to do. Let's do a. Well, we can just do it. Let's see. I don't know which version of Python I'm using, so I'll just do import PDB and a PDB set trace right here, and I'll run it without PDB down here. This will drop me into the debugger anyway. Okay, so here I am. Let's step into the debugger here. So let's print our tree list. So there it is. So if you're not familiar with the Python debugger, it's built into the language. Here's your life jacket. You hit H here. This gives you all the commands. If you want to know what one does, like I'm doing step here or next. So HS gives me the help for step. HN gives me the help for next. So I'm going to L, that lists where I am. And you can see there's a little arrow here that says you're at this line. So I'm just going to say next a couple times. If I hit enter again without typing it, it just repeats the last command. So next I'm at count. Okay, and so while Y position is less than that, let's just, hopefully it jumps into that. Okay, so here's Y pause. And I'm just going to say next. Let's look at row. So here is row. And X pause. Okay, so that's my problem. I got Y pause, but I didn't get X pause. So, or at least one of my problems. I probably have some other ones here. So let's go over here, and I'm just going to split my screen here. And okay. So we're going to, I also need to make sure I start, I'm not sure if if you can start on a tree or not, but I'm not checking the first spot, and I'm going to check the first spot here. So let's do that here. Instead of doing, yeah, so Y pause and that. Okay, come in here, Luna. My dog's sheepishly coming in here. Come in here. So here's some doggy coding, black dog coding. Sometimes she'll come in and sit at my feet while I'm coding. So it looks like I actually am checking the first position here. And then I'm going to increment that by, in this case, we're incrementing it by 3. At that point, we are at the end here. 1, 2. So maybe I need to double check what 3 means. So 1, 1. So 1, 3. So I don't really know if I can go 3. I think I have to go 2 here. I'm going to change my test to 2. So I'm changing that to 2 over here because I think I'm starting out here. I'm going over 1 and then I'm going down 1, 2, which should give me 1. Okay, let's save this. Okay, and I still got an error here, so I'm going to step into this code. Here's where I am. Okay, so I've got tree list. Let me just look at tree list. Okay, so here's tree list, and let's go to next, and let's look at row. It should be the first one from that. Okay, and x pause comma y pause. Those should be 0, 0. Okay, so I'm looking at row x pause, and row x pause should be a period. Okay, let's go to next. So x pause plus equals right. So what's our x pause now? It's 1. We went right 1 and we're going down 2. What's y pause? Y pause is 2. Okay. So we're going to go next, and I'm returning count. Okay, so I've got enough by 1 error. The length of tree list is 3. So this needs to be, while it's less than tree list, the infamous off by 1 error. Okay, let's push it back up the hill. I'm just going to continue here. Okay, that looks like it passed now. Okay, cool. So I think this basic logic will work. What it won't handle is it says it dynamically adds content to the right of our field here. So let's run this, and I'm sure it will fail on our test case. And okay. Okay, and I'm going to copy this input that I just downloaded. Okay, so what I could do is I could make a test to test the input here. Let's just try that here. Def test input, and I'm going to say that my tree map is equal to open input.txt read, and then I say res. Whoops, res is equal to this. Let's see what they wanted us to go down by. Right 3, down 1. Okay, so we'll probably get some errors when we pop off the end here. So I'll just deal with those here. And I'm going to assert that res is equal to 0. And let's just push this up the hill and see what happens here. Oh, I got that debug in there still. Okay, so we got the index error that I was thinking that we would have here. So let's debug that. Let me Yeah, and so in this case, the PDB is going to help us in this case, or it should help us, having that PDB in there to jump into an error. Now watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to say PyTest, excuse me, PyTest PDB. And so here I am. This is where the exception is. My xpos is 33. My row looks like this. So if I say xpos row, sorry, row xpos, row index operation xpos, I get that error. And what I want to do is if I get that error, then I want to try like row. And so here's row here. It turns out that you can do math on strings here. So maybe I'll just multiply that by some number. I can put, this might be a little bit ugly, but I can put a while loop in there if I get an exception and try it again until I don't get an exception, making that whiter. So I should be able to say row star 2, and then, now watch if I put xpos here, I'm going to get a syntax error because it says int is not subscriptable. So what I need to do is put parentheses around this and say row 2 and then xpos. So I need to first calculate the longer string and then do an xpos of that. Okay, so let's see if I can fix this here. This is this line here. And then I'm going to say while true, I'm going to try and run this. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to get, whoops, not this one. I'm going to try and run this right here. Okay. And I might get an index error. And if I do, then I'm going to, I mean, I could just cheat and say row times 10 and make it really big, but we'll just dynamically grow that. I is equal to 1. I'll just say I is equal to 2. Row star equals, we could double every time. Maybe we'll just do that. Star equals 2. And so if we got an index error, we'll do that. If we didn't get that, we're going to break out of here. Okay. Let's try this again. Okay, now I'm in an infinite loop, I believe. Okay, try and do that, and if we get that, we're going to break out of that. So row star equals, what's going on here? I'm gonna put a debug into okay, so it looks like we're on the last row here. Let me just yeah, let me, I can go in here and break it again. Okay, so I'm going to list what I have here. I've got tree list. Let me look at tree list. I'll look at the last 5 items of tree list. So I'm going to use a slice here, -5 to the end. And the last one is that empty string there. So that's never going to be a row. I just need to split that off. So I'm just going to say tree list dot split, and before I split it, I'm going to strip it to get rid of that line there. Cross my fingers and see if this works. Okay, and so I now got 198 instead of 0 here, so that looks like that is my solution for this. Okay, so now I have two tests that are passing, and the solution I think for this is 198. Let's try that. Yay, that's the right answer. Okay, so here is our code for the first part of day 3 here. What we did is we converted our string into a list. We made sure that it looks like there's a trailing new line there, which is causing my logic and how the Python split behavior works to insert an empty string at the end of that. So the strip there just gets rid of the trailing new line, which doesn't cause me to have an empty string at the end, which this logic here where I'm increasing the size of my line doesn't really work. You have an empty string has a length 0, you keep making it bigger than 0, it will never work there. And then we're just converting that string into a list, and then we're using some index operations and while loops to loop through that and get our counts there. Okay, and then we also demoed today using PyTest. I did a demo here with doctest, but then I'm like, okay, I kind of want to use PyTest because it has the ability to drop me into the debugger. We saw that this one, debugging that, wasn't so easy with PyTest because it failed, but I wanted to really drop into tree count, so I had to manually put in a debugger here. But this one down here, I got an error in my code, and in that case, PyDB, the --PDB, did help because I could jump into that, and we saw that I could fix that and resolve my issues there. So what do we learn from today? We learned that off by 1 errors are very common, right? I had an off by 1 error on this length down here, had an off by 1 error, not exactly an off by 1 error, but I'd say it's basically an off by 1 error because I didn't strip that up there as well. Okay, hopefully this was useful. I'd love to hear what your solutions are, if they look different than this, and have a great day. I'll probably do part 2 later. Bye, everyone.